start the show. The Good Life with DT and Spicoli. Welcome to the Good Life.
You are now listening to the Good Life Podcast.
Good Life. Good Life. These boys are crazy.
You are now listening to the Good Life Podcast.
Good Life. What?
Hey, welcome to the Good Life Podcast. My name is David Taylor.
Yo, it's Spicoli. What's poppin'?
What up, man? What's going on, man? Yo, so I've had this dude on before. We are days away from the release of Mad Valley coming out on 9/1. We got my boy Todd Sapio on.
But I won't take all the blame. Takes two to make it, two to break it. And you say we can't live this way.
Hey, how's it going, boys? Thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, man, doing well. So what's going on, man? You getting excited? I know you got a lot of work into this project, man, and it's finally gonna get revealed here in a couple of days. What's going through your head?
Yeah, man. I mean, you guys have artists on here all the time, and I'm sure everybody has their own path to finishing a project or finishing a record, and this one for me was a 3.5 year process of coming back to music from having left music completely. I burned out, went away from it. I did something completely different with my life for about 4 years. I started doing triathlon and Ironman for a few years. Something as far away from music as humanly possible. And then accidentally started falling into writing again. And then it turned out to be an album. And now the first single is dropping on 9/1. And I'm going to be releasing a single every 2 weeks for a couple of months before the album comes out. Just to get some buzz and just to have fun with how I'm releasing it. Because you guys know, releasing music now it's all singles.
Yeah,
but
it seems like that's the new thing. Yeah, dude. Like people, they want to
Yeah.
release a single after single after single. It's I love it, man. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's like a playlist thing, right? So everybody likes a bunch of different styles of music, and so you want to be able to listen to maybe Mad Valley and Block Party and Two Door Cinema Club and Coldplay, I guess, I don't know, and instead of just an entire record. And there's good and there's bad with that. I mean, I remember growing up, and I'm sure you boys do too, like going to a record store and thumbing through stuff, and you pick up the new Depeche Mode record or whatever it might be, Nine Inch Nails or something, because you heard that single, but then you hear so many other better songs that are on the record. You're like, why is this not on the on the radio? This track is amazing, and you wouldn't have experienced it had you not had to buy the record. So that's the one downside, but it, it's still great because now you can be paired with other larger artists in a playlist, right? If you get placed in the right playlist,
Dude, it's so weird to think about that, man. I haven't thought about that in so long, like going and buying an actual CD at the store and then getting in your car and being like, hey, skip to track 7. Dude, it's so crazy to think about that, man. Now it's just like you type in the name of the song and you listen to it. Back in the day, skip to this track, man.
Well,
so
the thing about Todd is now he's got strategy. He's like, I know what works. This is how I want to do it. And I think that's cool because you're independent, right? And you get to decide when you get to release new singles and new music.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's actually a great point because I haven't released an album in 7 years, right? The last record I did was, I think, 2015, maybe 2016. I can't remember. And with a band, and we released it just as a record, right? I think we just did it, that way. I'm not sure why, but this time I wanted to have kind of a strategy behind it. I wanted it to have some legs. I put a lot of my own money into it. Well, all of my own money and time and dedication and everything. And, honestly, heartache into it. And so I wanted to have longevity at least over a few months rather than just here's everything, so yeah. And so I kind of like the way that everybody says to release is do a single a month, but that just felt like too long for me. I just don't. I'm impatient. I'm impatient.
Yeah, we all
Right,
are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just said, you know what, 2 weeks. I'm going to do it this way, and I kind of like lined everything out, and then the whole record comes out as a whole in
Nice,
December.
dude. And then, so did you did most of it? Did you do most of it? So you're in Cali, for people who don't know. Did you do most of it there or back in Austin? I can't remember.
So right before I'll make this really quick, but right before the pandemic hit, I was on a plane and I was bored. And by the way, whenever you're on a plane, I think I might have told you this before, David, but whenever you're on a plane, don't sleep and don't watch movies. You are more creative in a plane than anywhere else. It might be because you're sitting around doing nothing and you're bored, or it might be the altitude. I don't know. But I was sitting in this plane and I was bored, and I opened my phone and I opened GarageBand for some weird reason, and I wrote something that I thought was really cool. And then I got home, and a couple days later I thought, oh, that thing was cool. What if I kind of opened it up in GarageBand and kind of like dove in, and it turned into this awesome thing that's an instrumental track on the record. It's right in the middle of the record. So you have the first part, and then you have this instrumental track that separates the two halves, and then you have the other half. And this instrumental was what I wrote on the plane 4 years ago, and then it turned into an album. But yeah, so that was when I was still living in Austin. And when I wrote this track, I started getting back into writing, and I hit up my buddy who works at a licensing company. And he said, hey, we're making an album. You want to write some music? And I thought, well, no better way to get back into it than writing for a library. Sure, why not? So I spent a week, locked myself in a room. I think I wrote 15 songs, like from nothing. It was crazy. It was like from 0 to 100. And it felt so good to do. And they ended up buying, I think, 7 tracks or something like that. It was great. It was great, yeah.
For those who are brand new, who are like hearing this for the first time, how would you describe your music?
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up with Depeche Mode, with U2, like old U2, like Sunday Bloody Sunday, Michael Jackson, like the Bad era, and then I really got into punk, like Green Day and Rancid and all that stuff. This is kind of that, but not really. It's not punk at all. But it's like Depeche Mode meets Block Party meets Two Door Cinema Club. It's kind of Brit rock, I would say. There's a lot of synthesizers all over it, which is brand new to me. I was always a guitar guy, guitar and piano. But I started getting into synthesizers for reasons I could talk about later. But I started getting into synthesizers, and I thought, hey, what would it be like to write a song with a synthesizer? I have no idea. And then it just turned into a record. So yeah, I would say Tudor Cinema Club, Block Party, old Depeche Mode, Songs of Faith and Devotion kind of thing, I'd say.
I'm glad he asked that, man, because I'll kind of touch a little bit of backstory on how I know Todd and this and that too, but every time that I hear something Todd releases, I always go, dude, this is what it sounds like. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. And then I back away and go, it doesn't sound anything like that, though. It just reminds me of that style of music.
What I heard the other day, somebody compared it to Postal Service. And I thought,
yeah, that's probably, I could see that, dude.
But here's the other thing. It's like, I don't have any problem with anybody comparing my music with artists. Like, I love it. Like, oh, you hear, I don't know, 9 Inch Nails? Sure, great, awesome, I'll take it. You hear Marilyn Manson? I don't know, but sure, okay. I love it because everybody has a different.
Has someone ever compared you to Manson?
No.
Oh, I was about to be like, dude, they're on some drugs, bro.
No, but someone did. I've written music where someone compared it to Rage Against the Machine, and I was like, okay, please, yes, great. I mean, that was one of my favorite bands.
That, yeah.
So you're getting heavy, you're getting Rage. I mean, you're going 9 Inch Nails. You're going. I mean, you're alternative and you're rock. I mean, you combine the worlds together, right? Is this how this is working?
I mean, I literally have, and I think most artists that you guys have probably interviewed, they probably don't have like a specific, I'm going to stay in this lane when they sit down to write something. They just they sit down and whatever they're feeling in that moment just happens to come out. And the ones that are, really happy with what they got, or feel like they've hit something special, are the ones that have opened themselves up to whatever the hell comes through them to be the conduit, right? So there was never a moment where I said, I want to sound like this. It was just whatever. Oh, I did this thing and I liked that. Okay, what else can I do? And then it turns into a song. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's, a lot of times I'll sit down and something will come out. I'm like, if I sat down to write that, there's no way I could have done that. I don't know where that came from. And those are the
best songs, though.
Those are the best songs. You're right. Like, those are the best
For
songs.
sure.
So
Spicoli, a little backstory on this real quick, man. So you kind of see how I know Todd and whatnot. So he was in a band called Language Room.
Okay.
Language Room was amazing. It's been by far probably one of the best music I've ever heard in my life. Sean Hill from Omaha was their drummer. And Sean was posted on Facebook like a new music video they shot called Kerosene, and they were doing a tour. And I said something to Sean. I was like, "You guys coming through Omaha?" And he's like, "Dude, we can't find a venue anywhere." And I was like, "Well, I work at the same bar we did stand up at when you ripped my set list up."
Right. That one.
Yeah. So when I was working there, I was like, "Well, dude, I work at this bar. I mean, I don't know if you guys just want to play a show." And Sean was like, "Dude, yeah, my family's never got to see me in this band. If we can just come there and play, dude, yeah." And I think we had like a 2-day notice, wasn't it, Todd?
Yeah,
it was something really
crazy.
quick. Yeah. And so I was like, "Yeah, let me ask." And the guy was cool, so I was like, "Yeah, let's do a show there." And I booked it, dude. I mean, we had a pretty decent little turnout, man, for it being a 2-day notice. But that was the first time I met these dudes and heard like all their music, and I was like, "Dude, these guys own, like, they're really good." So then probably like, I want to say it wasn't long after that. It was probably a month or two after that. This is going to kind of tie in some other podcasts, which is kind of cool. Christian Skermont was working Warped Tour, and he was working for Mayday Parade, who I've had both of these people on the podcast now, was Mayday and Christian. And my friend out in Texas was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about going to Warped Tour tomorrow." And I was like, "Well, let me hit up Christian and see if he's going to be there." And Christian's like, I was like, "Hey, what if I were to fly to Texas tomorrow? Can you hook me up with some Warped Tour stuff?" He's like, "Dude, fly down, I got you." And it was in San Antonio. So Todd and Language Room and all the guys live down in Austin. So I fly into San Antonio like 2 months later, hit these guys up, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm like an hour up the road. What are you guys doing?" They're like, "We're about to practice. You want to come over?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, sure." So I drive down to Austin, dude, end up missing Warped Tour and spent the whole weekend with these dudes. So I've gotten to see from what he used to do to now, and it's just so different. But I will say, I can hear Language Room and Ready to Fall. And when it first started, I was like, "This is so much different." And then I think like the guitars or something hit, and I was like, "Okay, that's that." I feel it now. Now I'm starting to see the similarities a little bit. So it's super cool, man.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Up in the castle, evil mischief stirs.
Plan number 42. I shall turn myself into a cat and get adopted by the butcher's daughter so I can learn all her secrets. Then, I will use them to make her fall in love with me. What do you think, Wilson?
Hey, check out 1v1 Me DM on all podcast platforms to see more of Dracula's perfect plans at finding true love.
Yeah, that's exciting. You've kind of been part of, like, the history of the band and Todd, and like just kind of growing, and you see how this band will evolve and try new things. So understandably so, why you're excited for this new album to drop, man. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be something completely different. And Todd, I mean, you taking a break from music for 4 years blows my mind. But the path that you took, you're like, I'm gonna go work out really hard and like be an Iron Man. I can see it behind your body. You're ready. I mean, and if you're a performer, you need to be in shape, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. Dude, I have no idea. Like, sometimes I just I have like this whole, you remember the movie Up with Doug the dog? He's like, "Squirrel."
Oh, yeah.
I have this whole attitude of whatever it is I'm focused on, I'm 1,000% on it, and I cannot do anything else. And I fought that for a long time, and I did multiple things, and then I've just decided in my years to honor that instead. And so when I have like a drive to do something, that's my attention. And it was important for me, especially in that time of my life, because if you've ever been in a band or been part of a band, you know that it's not just making music. Unfortunately, it is for good or bad. It's a relationship between all the guys and girls that are in the band. It is also a level of activeness, like who is doing all of the work, is because there is a ton of work. Is it one person? Is it all of them? Usually it's one or two, right? You don't, with Metallica, Lars does all the work. Like, let's be clear, right? We know that. And that's fine to a point, but at some point, I mean, I had been doing it for 20 years where I was the person doing everything. And so I just burned out, and I had to walk away. I had to honor that because it was impacting the music, and I could tell like in my performance, I could tell in my writing, and I wasn't excited to rehearse anymore. And it was difficult. It was very difficult because it was all I had done since I was 12 years old. And then, to be 32 and to say, you know what, I have to stop, guys. I have to stop. It was hard. It's like breaking up, like getting a divorce. But then I have to do something. I have to put my energy towards something else, so that's where the racing came in. That worked, for a while, still does. I mean, I still train, but yeah, coming back to it felt fresh. It still does. It feels like every time I sit down to write something now, I have like, zero pressure. I only do it because I want to, and whatever comes out, that's what it is. And it's always different and unique and cool. Feels like the whole reason why I started writing music in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, I've refound that joy,
I was going to say, we've kind of touched on that in the past, and it seems like now it's fun again for you, right? That's kind of the big thing. I mean, it's not so stressful.
Yeah, you don't really hear it in the music. It's kind of sad all over the place, but...
Ooh, you talk about sad songs, man. We've talked about this, and we'll see if you're comfortable talking about it. Cool. If not, man, we'll switch it up. But if you get a chance, some of his old music, like I said, Language Room, there's a song called "One Missing Heartbeat." It's used in an anti-smoking commercial in Oklahoma. I mean, you watch the commercial and just, dude, it like break your heart just watching the commercial with that song. Was it used in movies too, or was that a different song? I know Playing God was in movies, but was that one in anything else besides that?
Yeah, there were a couple of movies and still a couple of shows in Germany that stream
That's right.
and that use it. Yeah, and that's where most of the plays are.
But you told me a story about that song, and if you're cool telling it, it's about the guy at the bar that you told me.
Yeah, sure.
That's such a good story, man.
I was on tour. I had just moved to Austin, maybe 6 months before, from LA, and I was on tour with a couple of acoustic tour, and we, I don't know, we went all over the country. I think we played like 40 dates or something. I don't know, 40 or 50 dates, and we went to Raleigh, and Raleigh is a great place to play normally. But we didn't time it right, and spring break had just let out. I think it was a Saturday, but spring break had just let out like that Friday, and so it just emptied. Like the whole city just kind of emptied, or at least the section of city that we were playing. And we got there, and nobody was at the venue. We had to wait for like an hour or something for the bartender to get there. He was kind of a dick, but whatever. They always are. And he let us in. We set up, and came back later that night to do the show, and there was nobody there, guys. Like, nobody. I mean, there was the bartender, and there was a couple, and there was one other dude. That was it, right? And so you put a lot into everything that you do, right? But then imagine like that's what you got to play to, right?
It's tough. Yeah.
It's tough, right?
Tough to get motivated to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But then not just motivated to start, but like to continue and play your whole set.
Right.
So anyway, I start playing the set, and a few songs in, this guy at the bar starts like, after every song, he's cheering really loud, like overly, like annoyingly, like, like I am not that good.
Like, stop putting it on, dude.
What am I, cold
cheering or what?
Exactly. Like, no, come on. So it was really annoying, but whatever. I just finished the set. And it was the entire set long. And I go up to the bar afterwards because I just needed a drink. This was not good. I mean, other shows in the tour were great. We had hundreds of people there. This one was really bad. We go to the bar. I asked the guy for a beer. I wasn't really drinking at the time, but I wanted one. It was a hard night. And the guy who was cheering came up and started talking to me, and he was wasted out of his gourd. Really drunk. And I don't know. I try to be a nice person and try to understand people, before I make a judgment. So I just started talking to him, and it turned out, and he started crying, right? And I was like, oh man, what's wrong? And it turned out that, I don't know, 2 or 3 days before that, he had lost his son to leukemia. It's like 2-year-old son to leukemia. And his wife had just left him like a little while before that. And he was just completely destroyed. And I'd never seen anybody like that. And so all of his cheering was actually legitimate. It was just, he didn't realize he was being kind of a jerk about it, or it seemed like. And we talked for almost 2 hours until the other people I was touring with were like, dude, we got to go. We got to go to the next city. Come on. And I had to leave. But before I left, I said, man, I know I'm going to write a song about this. I know it. I mean, we would have we would be talking, and 2 or 3 minutes into him being present, he would just break down and cry. And just his ability, not his ability, his vulnerability with me in that moment, I don't know, I felt it. And so I was just messing with this riff throughout the rest of the tour, and just kind of was like playing around. And then I got back to Austin, and I want to say a week later, I sat down on my porch, and in 20 minutes I wrote the song. Like, it just fell out. That's crazy, dude. Yeah. And then my same buddy who ended up buying a bunch of songs recently, called me up and said, hey man, we're doing this record. We need some music. Do you have anything? And I said, yeah, I got this song. I think it'd be great. So I flew up to LA. We tracked it there. And then yeah, the rest is, I guess, history, if you want to call it. But
did you ever get to show that guy the song? Did you get his information or anything? Or you just don't know if he's never heard it?
No, I never did. Keep in mind, this was back in 2006. So
okay.
This was like pre-iPhone.
Yeah.
So,
man. And what was the song called?
It's called One Missing Heartbeat.
Okay.
Yeah. If you YouTube it, I think you can find it.
It's on Spotify.
Yeah. And it's on Spotify too.
Yeah.
No. So I never got a hold of him again, but I've been back to the poorhouse and I've played, and we melted the place, so it was good.
There you go, man. And you and Spicoli have a mutual connection. We kind of dive into this. Scott works with Matt from Blue October, and you can kind of fill Spicoli in on that story with Matt, but yeah, Spicoli's done tons of work with Blue October, man, so he knows those dudes very well. So.
Really?
Yeah.
How so? You work with Justin and them?
I had worked at this radio station for 20 years, and we were one of the first in the country to play Breakfast After 10. From Blue October, and so we had always established a really good relationship with the band, and now Omaha is like their second home. Whenever they come to Omaha, it's like it's a big old party. Those guys just love it here, and Omaha supports them very well. And Justin moved to Lincoln for a little bit. He was married to a woman from Lincoln, had a kid with her, and then they went their separate way. They divorced, but then he moved back to Texas. But yeah, I had Justin on my show multiple times over the years, and just to see the growth of Blue October is pretty cool.
Yeah, man, that guy's so cool. He's been through so much, and for him to come out so positive in the end is just it's so great to see. And yeah, Matt is an amazing individual, amazing human being. That's cool, man. I guess I didn't realize that. So that was from Consent to Treatment, right?
Yep.
That first or the second record, I guess, that they had.
Yeah, Consent to Treatment. Yeah, I think that was the one. Yeah, that's what it was. Yep.
That record, I remember hearing Independently Happy, and thinking, "What the hell is this? This is the realest thing I have heard in my life." It was so visceral. That whole record was so visceral. That's cool that you guys played that first, or one of the first to play that, because that really turned me on to them. And granted, I like their music now, but back then, like, that record definitely changed my trajectory.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the album that you told me you were like, you have to go listen to this album if you like, because I think I was like, wasn't like Calling Me on that album, and you're like, no, go listen to this album right now.
Go back to Consent and Treatment, and yeah, with Independently Happy, I asked him about that. I'm like, doom, 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 doom. What's that sound? Where'd you get that sound? I was like, doom, doom, doom. And he was like, that was my windshield wipers. And he was like, it was raining, and the windshield wipers was on, and he was just like, the song just came to me. And yeah,
I had no idea. Are you kidding? Wow.
No, that's where it came from. And that's the kind of like cool stuff that, like, you know, once you talk to these bands, and like you always wonder like what inspired this song. Like, you know, if it's a drunk guy at a bar who, you know, has been going through some stuff, or like you're sitting in the car and the rain is falling down and the windshield wipers doom 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 doom. You know, so that sort of stuff is like, it's interesting to hear like how these songs develop. And it's just, it could be a sound, it could be somebody walking by, it could be like, you know, something you overheard. And that's what I think the beautiful thing about artists are. It's just like you guys are always observing, and you find a way to turn that into a song that we can all relate to. It's crazy how you can do that.
Yeah, I really have been, or over the years, have gotten into listening to Rick Rubin and how he looks at creativity in general. And it's a really, in an age where it's all about attention and likes and views and listens and stuff, it's really hard as an artist to think about, in any capacity, whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're making music or movies or whatever, it's really hard to make something that's honest despite that you know that you need attention, right? It's really hard to sit down and say, I'm going to make this thing, irregardless, if that's a word, of what happens. Because most, like you said, Spicoli, like most of the time when you make something that's real, that's the best thing that you've made. The realer it is.
Yeah,
right?
it's authentic.
But how can it be real?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But how can it be real if the reason you're making it has anything to do with anything outside of what you're making, right? Mm-hmm. And so things like that where it just falls out of you is really a beautiful thing, and not attaching too much meaning to it at the same time too, because a lot of times when I start working on something, or when anybody does, I think if you start thinking too much about like, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? You start get bogged down into like, that makes me think about like what somebody else is going to think about it.
Right.
Instead of just like being the conduit, letting it come through you and letting it come out. And all of a sudden it is what it is, regardless of yourself even, and what you wanted to put into it. If you make it more subconscious, that's more real, because your subconscious is what you really are. We really are our subconscious. Everything else that's on the surface, that's our conscious mind, is something that is influenced by other people, society, the weather, your mood at that time. Your subconscious isn't affected by your mood. I could wake up one day and be a jerk to my wife and my kids, but that's not who I am in my subconscious, right?
Right.
That's just the vibe that I had that day. I just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. So anyway,
I was once talking to Brent Smith of Shinedown. I had him on my radio show, and he was saying like sometimes like this songs are like a vessel. He is the vessel, and the song just comes out. And it's just I'd never heard of it like that way before, like where, you know, you're the vessel and it just kind of pours out of you. And sometimes you don't even know how these things connect. It just, everything that you have experienced just kind of flows out. When you start writing, it all like just starts to connect.
Yeah. That's the way to say, you know, I was saying conduit, but vessel's the same thing.
Yeah.
When I was in Language Room, we went in, I guess, to record the Kiona record, David. We went in and we finished the album, and then I had one more song, and I said, guys, we got to go back in and do this song. I just really want to do it, but I didn't have it written yet. I didn't have the words written yet. We just had the music done. So I said, but don't worry, it'll be done by the time vocals need to be done. So we did all the music, and I still didn't have the vocals ready. And I was freaking out. I was like, I have nothing. I have nothing. It was because I was trying too hard. Yeah. So basically, I mean, this is a whole story of smoking and why I don't smoke anymore. But
such a funny story, dude. Oh my gosh.
So I don't smoke because weed just like really messes me up. I don't know. It just messes me up. I can't handle it. And I thought I was sitting there trying to write this thing and I couldn't write. And I thought, oh, maybe if I think outside the box, maybe if I smoke or something, it'll help. I had a really bad trip experience, whatever. I felt like I had too much pressure on me. I ended up locking myself in the bathroom. I called my wife. I was crying. I was like, these guys are trusting me and I have nothing. I don't know what to do. I'm wasting their time, money and all that. Anyway, long story short, we cut the session short and I said, guys, I need to go home. This is not working. I went home, I collected myself, I sat down and I shut my brain off and I wrote the whole thing in 30 minutes. And I remember coming back the next day and I said, and Scott is one of my best friends in the world. And he's the guitar player. He was a guitar player in Language Room and Kiona. And actually he played a lot of guitars in Mad Valley. And I walked into the studio. I said, here's the lyrics. Put them down on the table. And he's very picky of lyrics. And he goes, holy shit, dude, where did this come from? And I said, I don't know. It just came out in 30 minutes. He goes, oh my God, this is the best thing on the record. This is amazing. And that was like a kind of a light bulb moment for me of, oh, I'm trying too hard. Mm-hmm. When you're trying too hard, you are not in your subconscious mind. You are in your conscious mind, letting the world influence you in a way that affects what you're trying to create. And it blocks. It's a blocker to the universe trying to make you the conduit or the vessel.
Right.
You know?
Dude, I got to say this, and I've told you this before, but this has to be public. So I have never been in a room with 4 dudes who are more talented than what you guys were, between you and Scott and Sean and, oh my goodness, he's going to kill me, Scott's brother. Matt, dude. So they'd get done with practice. I mean, so they were practicing, and Todd's like, what do you want to hear? Something that, you want to hear something? I was like, yeah, and I dropped a song, and they got done playing the song I asked, and I was joking around. I was like, now make a pop punk song. And they, like, right there on the spot, like, they just created something, and I was like, this is better than, like, 90% of the stuff out there right now. They just made it up on the spot. But then they go inside the house, dude. They just start playing piano, like classical piano, and they're all just hanging out like it's normal. And I'm like, what is going on right now? Like, you guys are like, oh my goodness.
You got to witness something special, like going in and sitting down and just seeing how their brains operate, and true, honest musicians who just know how to play, know how to write, know how to put together something. That a lot of people, would love to see that. And David just like rubbing his way in. Hey, let me come and hang out. But what a cool experience for you, man.
It was very cool, man. It was very cool hanging out
with
those dudes.
We loved having you there, man. I remember that night specifically, that rehearsal. And I mean, I gotta put it though to Scott and Matt that they're the most musical people that I know.
They're crazy,
and I like to liken it with Sting. So Sting, one of the reasons he says that he was so successful is because he surrounded himself with players that were better than him, and he allowed them to do their thing. Right? I mean, you don't play with Vinnie Colaiuta for 20 years and not let him play. You know what I mean? Like, one of the greatest drummers of all time. So that's one of the reasons why we did so well together and still do. Right? I mean, Matt played bass on almost every song on the record. I think on 11 of the 13 songs he played bass. Scott played guitar on every song that there's guitar on except for 2. And then so they're all over it too, and they're multi-instrumentalists. They play, guitar, bass, piano, organ. I mean, Scott's a great mandolin player. And of course, when I'm making a project, I'm going to go to the best players, and so I know these guys, and I know what they can do. And so when I talked to Matt, so Matt Nevesky helped produce this record, and when I talked to him and said, "Hey man, I have an album I want to do," be involved? And he said, well, send me what you got. Which I appreciated because I worked with him a lot over the years. And meeting him was actually fun too. I met him at Guitar Center. But I worked with him a lot over the years, and I appreciated that he didn't just take it. He didn't just say, yeah, let's do it. He was like, no, what do you got? You know, is this shit or is this good? And yeah. And so I sent him the demos, and they're, you know, whatever I could do in my room. And then I built a studio in my backyard in Austin. That's where I started doing this.
Okay.
And he liked it and said, yeah, let's do it. So at this point, Scott has been working at Orb for a while. Orb is the studio that Matt has in Austin, and now he's managing the place. And so I said, but I'll only do it if you're producing and if Scott is engineer. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So Scott engineered the entire thing. Matt produced it, and he produced it in the middle of being on tour. I think they were on tour. They came back to Austin for like a week and a half. We did the record, and then, or a week, and we did the record, and then he went back on the road or something crazy like that or whatever. But anyway, yeah. So I wanted all of my best friends involved in the record because it was important to me to have my life in this, because I thought if this is the thing that I've been working on for years, how can it not involve the people that I love the most?
Right. Let me ask you this.
My daughter's in it. Yeah.
Okay. So what's it going to feel like because you spent so much time on this record, what's it going to feel like to finally get it all out there? Is it going to feel relief? What are you going to feel?
Man, that's a great question. Okay. I think that a lot of artists have this kind of, and please correct me if your experience with artists is wrong, but for me personally, there's a bittersweet moment that you have when you've been working on something and put your whole body and self and soul into something, and then you're done.
Yeah, I feel that.
Right. So you work on something for a long time. The deadline is coming, and you're working hard. You throw everything into it, and then the deadline is here, and then it's done. Now what? And so you have this kind of feeling of loss. But then it's overshadowed by a feeling of joy because you're able to give it away to the world.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. I had this feeling, Spicoli, of like a loss when I got the final masters back. You know, I was like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. I can't do anything else to this.
Right. and the thing
in fact,
it's not yours. And like once you release it, it is no longer yours. It's the world to decide what they want to do with it. But to put that much heart and soul into it for years and years and years, and you know where you wrote that song, you know what you did with that song, you grabbed your friends on this song, and to finally say it's out. I feel like, in a sense, like after talking to all these artists over the years, it's like there's so much, like you put so much into it, and then once you put it out there, it's no longer yours. It's for the world to consume, and you just hope that they react in a positive way.
Yeah, do you almost feel
have you had that feeling before?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I almost feel like when I used to release music, man, as soon as I released it, I was like, now I gotta start on something new. Like, I don't know, it was always something in me that was like, all right, well, this is fun. I go to concerts, man, but like now I gotta start working on something new. Like, that's old. Like, that's how it felt to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was weird. I got it.
So my feeling used to be, I've got to, and now it's I get to.
I like that.
Which is a completely different mental shift. Like, why do you guys do the podcast? Do you do it because you have to?
No.
Or do you do it because you get to?
We get to.
Right? You love it,
yeah,
right?
I love it.
You love talking to new people, like, you know, getting new insights from creatives and stuff, and that moves you. When you wake up in the morning, you know, I got a podcast today. Like, okay, now you get to. And that's a totally different feeling from before when I have to. So for this, once I got those final masters back and I listened to the whole record from beginning to end for the freaking 100th time, and I had no notes, you know, I had no notes to give to the mastering engineer, which, by the way, was the hardest decision of the entire record, which was who to have master this thing, because it was the final decision. it was like, it took me 3 weeks, and I tested with 15 different people. I just couldn't make the decision. I had decision fatigue. But when I got those final masters back, I went into this deep depression for a good 2 weeks of now, what am I? I am this. Oh no. You know, I assigned myself to this thing that took me years to make. And then as I started going through the process of, okay, thinking about how am I going to release this? What's most important to me? Like, what's the vibe I want to put out there? You know, do I start making content, all this stuff? It started feeling better. It started feeling like, oh, I'm giving this away. I'm giving this away. I'm giving this to the world. And if it's received great, which I hope, then fantastic. And if it's not, okay, how are you going to feel if it's not received well? Okay, go through that process. I started putting myself through the process.
No.
And then it started feeling a little bit better. And now I'm totally fine with it. I'm ready to make the next one. I'm ready to continue moving forward and whatever comes next, but that's a great question.
Yeah, man. So you brought up Nine Inch Nails a bunch of times when I've talked to you recently. And is that because you're kind of doing the Trent Reznor thing? How much more fun is it for you to be able to just like complete control over a project and then pick who gets to work on it with you?
Dude, it's the most freeing thing ever, man. I've done the band thing for so long, and I don't know how to do a band and not be equal split down the board.
No.
I don't know how to do it. And it's, even if I come in and I write all the music, I don't know how to be in a band with guys and not give them equal split. I can't do it. But at some point it just becomes difficult not because of a money thing, but just because of I have this idea and I can't get it out because you also have an idea that I have to respect. And you also have an idea that I have to respect. And that's fine to a point. But if I have a specific vision and this slows me down, it drives me crazy. Like, I'm not a hard person to work with, but at the same time, if I have vision, let's execute that first because I know exactly what I want. And then if it turns out to not be good or we can make it better, okay, great. But in the band that I was in with these guys, they're so good, right? That there's a lot of ideas coming and they're all valid and great ideas that I get distracted. So my initial idea turns into something completely different that, I mean, for lack of a better term, is a little bastardized by the end of the session, the writing session.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you guys have that experience.
Yeah, creative differences, man. I mean, this is why bands break up, because you are so focused on your vision, they have their vision, and then you always hear like, well, we broke up with creative differences. Why is that? And then once over the years, like why, or something that I've learned from artists, it's because you are so passionate and you want to go this way and they want to go that way. And it's like just a tug of war and it's hard. And, also as like a radio show, like I like to come up with all the ideas and I want to go this way with it. And then, you got to work with your co-hosts and your producers and make sure like they're all on board. And it's frustrating when, you do have that vision and you want to take it this way and they want to go that way. But I mean, that is tricky. So how do you just, is that why you like working more like solo and coming up with things?
Yeah, because the main reason is, man, I'm slow. I'm really slow. My ideas, I mean, in a lot of ways, but creatively I'm slow. Like I'll have an idea and I'll sit with it for days, weeks, sometimes months. And then I'll come back to it and it'll inspire me in a month or in 2 months. And a lot of other musicians that are way better than me are faster, right? Mm-hmm. They have all these ideas. Let's try this. Da, 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 da. And I just need to slowly like dip my toe into it to know I like that, or I want it to go this direction or whatever. And it doesn't bode well when everybody's trying to make something at the same time. So this record took me a long time, partially because I would write something, leave it alone for 6 months, and then come back to it, like 6 months later. And then I would get it to a point where I didn't know what else to add, and I would send it to Scott. And then he'd send me back this beautiful, lush guitar sound or whatever. I think there's a track on the record called Only Good Things is a great example of him taking something that was very basic. It was like just these 4 synthy chords, and turning it into this lush soundscape of guitar that I sent him one day, and it was just gorgeous. But until it gets to that point where I'm ready for somebody else to put their thing on it, it's kind of hard to know what I want it to be. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So yeah,
kind of touching base on the creative differences thing, dude. So obviously me and you did a podcast before Spicoli joined. And I think at that time, nobody really knew, and I kind of let you in on it, that he was coming on. And I was like, yeah, this is going on, man. So we might do another one with you. But I mean, me and him, dude, like, I would say, man, what was it? Probably a month or two before you came on. I mean, we were just hashing shit out, dude, before he came on. Like, dude, this is what I want to do. And he's like, this is what I want to do. And like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if you get this feeling, man. But when like I'm in control or something, sometimes I get like super offended when people say ideas, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? And it didn't happen with him. And I was like, all right, well, that's good that I'm not getting that feeling, man. Because he had a lot of input on this, man. He was like, this is how we need to do it if I'm coming on. And I was like, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. And then by the end of it, I was like, yeah, dude, let's do this, man. And dude, it's been a killer ride so far. We've had some awesome people on. We get to have you on, dude. I've been a fan of you for years, and I get to be a part of your release coming out on September 1st, dude. That's so cool to me, man. I'm having just such a blast.
I'm honored to be on here with you guys. And Spicoli, how'd you hear about David and the podcast? Like, what was?
Oh boy,
how did this happen?
DT's backyard. Just kidding. We're not doing that
well, it starts with DT's backyard. He always throws these big old parties, and I would love to have you come to DT's backyard and just throw like on an acoustic set. But things get a little bit wild. He has a ton of money to blow. And he will fly you in here. We can do a little thing. We can invite entire city of Omaha. Let's see how this goes. Because, I mean, this guy, his backyard is beautiful. I don't think a lot of people know about it. So
Megan literally asked me today. She goes, has he ever seen our backyard? And I go, of course he has.
I don't even know if I've seen your backyard. I just assume that is a badass backyard.
All jokes aside, I met him randomly. Man, I don't know. I don't know when the first time I met you was. It was a long time ago. And then he came and checked me out when I was doing stand-up comedy. He jumped on a couple stand-up shows with me. And then we just kept in touch throughout the years. He would randomly talk about me on the radio and make fun of me about certain things. And he'd be like, you hear that on the radio? And I'm like, dick. Like, why would you tell people I have gout? Like, what are you doing? Like,
you're the youngest person I know that has gout.
Yeah, he literally was like, I just talked about you on the radio. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, you're the youngest person I know that has gout. And I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you?
So good.
Like, on like the most popular rock station in the area. And I'm just like, oh my God, Jason.
That's great.
But yeah, no, man. And then,
and then what? We just started reconnecting, and I saw that he was doing a podcast, and I had always kind of wanted to do something on the side. Like, I left the rock station. I was there for like 20 years, and then I went to the pop station, where it's more like and it's this legendary heritage pop station here in Omaha, Sweet 98.5, and you know they play everything from Matchbox 20 to Maroon 5 to Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran and all that stuff. So it's been quite the change for me, but rock has always been in my bones, and so I just noticed who David Taylor was interviewing, and I was like, man, this is really good. And then he asked if I could come on his podcast, and I saw his equipment. I was like, whoa, this is really good. Like, he's not really kind of, when I meet a lot of people who are starting up a podcast, it's the basic equipment, just enough to get you by. And I was like, whoa, that's really good stuff. Like, you got really good sound quality. You got, everything that you should have to do it right. And I saw the passion, and I saw how motivated he was, and that kind of excited me too, because one day I wanted to start my podcast and do a bunch of rock stars and artists that I find intriguing. And we just started talking. And how many texts did I send you? Probably 1,000 text messages, questions of like, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you want to try this? And I think we just started communicating very well.
I'm sure my wife was questioning my sexuality at one point.
Well, my wife calls you.
I just love Spicoli,
dude. It's insane.
My wife thinks like you're my husband now. So just so you know.
Dude, there's times when we'll be texting her the day, and I'm like, oh, we can't talk anymore today, dude. We've talked enough for the day. And then like 3 hours later, he'll be like, hey, what do you think about this? And then we just start going again. I'm like, my fingers hurt. Texting all day.
That's great.
Cut it off.
That's a great relationship.
Yeah, dude, it works good.
You can have that, and you also feel like free to throw out the idea. I think it was, what was it? I saw a thing about Matt Damon and Ben Affleck when they were working on. Have you seen it? When they were working on Good Will Hunting.
Oh yeah.
And they sat down and Ben said, "Don't judge me on my bad idea. Don't judge me on how bad my bad ideas. Judge me on how good my good ideas are." But I can't remember. Don't basically let me be okay. Be okay with me being bad.
Yeah,
right.
You know, with some ideas being bad. Don't judge me on that.
Dude, honestly,
don't judge me on how bad my bad ideas are, but how good my good ones are.
Those two are like one of the most fascinating things ever, dude. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Have you I listened to like tons of podcasts with those two and interviews, like how they were in high school together, and they would go to the cafeteria and have business meetings. And like they were like, "What came out of your business meetings?" They're like, "Absolutely nothing." They would just sit there and try to act cool and have business meetings, dude. But yeah, no, those two.
Well, did you hear the story of somebody was picking on how they met? Like somebody was picking on Matt, and it was like a kid that was a couple years older, and Ben was always bigger, and Ben like beat the crap out of, or I don't know if he beat the crap out of him, but he defended Matt when he was getting picked on, and so that's how he became big.
No joke.
Like it's just like it's
Matt
so great,
Damon shot a movie here in Omaha. Spicoli, didn't you go meet him when he came?
Yeah. Well, I ended up meeting him. Like we went out there, me and my radio partner at the time, we went out there and we got word that he was coming out of, everybody was at the back entrance and we went to the front entrance because everybody was told back entrance is where we'll be. But like we kind of had that dumb luck where it's like, let's try the front entrance. And we kind of got a little rumor and yeah, here comes Matt Damon walking out and he's in this big black SUV. And my partner at the time, he was dressed up as one of his movie characters. I can't remember which one, but Matt
Loki,
Damon
wasn't it?
What? Who was it?
It was from Dogma.
Yeah, that
wasn't
one.
It?
Yeah, that was the one. Yep. So he was dressed up as him, and like we met Matt Damon. It got all on video, went viral on the internet, like all over Reddit and stuff. And he was just super cool. And I knew he was a Husker fan because we fist bumped. When we fist bumped, he said GBR, Go Big Red, for the Nebraska Huskers. So I was like, what? And then, because I guess his nephew was going to play football for Nebraska. So it was just, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He was.
That's dope,
man. Just kind of the people you bump into, you put yourself out there and you just want to do stuff for your radio show or, your music career. And it's just like little things like that you don't expect, you just got to put yourself out there and you got to, just have a little fun with it.
For sure.
You do. You're right.
Dude, man, thank you so much for coming back on. And, a couple days before the release of Mad Valley, man. Oh, dude, I can't wait, man. I'm so happy that we get to be a part of that. And we get to help premiere that on Friday, September 1st, man. Is it going to be on all streaming platforms? That's the plan?
All platforms on September 1st. Yes, sir. And then every other week after that, every other Friday after that, will be a new release. Working on some videos, full-length videos too. And some sync licensing and stuff, and we'll see what happens. But thank you guys so much for having me on, helping me promote this, get it out there. It really means a lot. I know you guys. I don't even know if it's your style of music, honestly.
It's not, dude. I told you that. Your music is not my style, dude, but I love it, dude. I told you I listen to like metal and emo, dude. That's about, and I don't listen too much in between, man.
Not what this is.
Dude, it's not.
So if any of your listeners are expecting that, they're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, and I'm not a music snob. I love to hear about new music, and this is almost like I always tell David, it's like a new music discovery. Like this is why people listen to the podcast. They can get a little bit behind the scenes with the artists. They can catch some new music, something to update their playlists, and hear from the artists themselves. And you're so passionate and you're so creative, and you work with some really cool people. And I'm really excited to see what this is all about. This will be like really my first time getting to hear what you're all about.
Oh, thank you, Spicoli. I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you, from both of you guys. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Anyway, where can people find you, man? I guess
madvalleymusic.com, or it'll be on Spotify and Apple Music, all the good things. Obviously, got some merch and stuff too, but yeah, and then all Instagram, Facebook, all the places. It's out.
Well, I'm about ready to follow you everywhere if that's cool.
Please do, man. Please do. I want to follow you too. I want to stay in touch with The Good Life and what you guys got going on. I know you got a lot going on, and I'm so proud of you guys, and keep it up. Keep going pushing forward because you got something special.
Make sure you come back to Omaha, man.
Thank
We need to get some more Todd in the Omaha here, man, and get you a real show that we can get more people out to this time, man. So, absolutely,
you
man.
got it. I will hit you up, man.